Good afternoon, Dr. Terry.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
And I think, Mr. Wooten, if we can say, I know Dr. Terry's testimony tends to be long, if we can leave the water over there so that she can access it if she needs it, please.
Thank you.
If you could just grab some.
Please,
Okay, all right.
Can I have something a little bigger than that?
Do we have anything bigger or any of the small bottles? He'll accommodate.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. You may swear in your witness.
Dr. Terry, raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter now pending before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please introduce yourself to the jury.
My name is Dr. Carol Terry. I function as the Chief Medical Examiner for Gwinnett County. I'm a forensic pathologist.
What education, training, experience do you have that allows you to serve as a medical examiner and a forensic pathologist?
Okay. In 1986, I graduated from Emory College of Emory University with a Bachelor of Arts in Religion and a Bachelor of Science in Biology. From 1986 to 1990, I attended Emory University School of Medicine, where I received my Doctor of Medicine degree, so I am an MD. From 1990 to 1995, I did a specialty in medicine of pathology, and this was at the Emory University affiliated hospital systems, and I did a combined 5-year program of anatomic and clinical pathology. Thank you. Pathology is the study of disease, and anatomic pathology involves diagnosing disease states from tissues, such as biopsies from living people, tissues and organs from people obtained at the time of surgery, and autopsy specimens. Clinical pathology is the laboratory medicine aspect of pathology and involves liquid-based pathology, diagnosing disease states from fluids such as blood, urine, saliva, and things of that nature, and involves such areas of medicine as chemistry, hematology, microbiology, and blood banking. Now, during the last year of my 5-year residency, I got to work exclusively at the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office in a subspecialty of pathology, forensic pathology. Forensic pathology is the medical legal investigation of death. And so I spent a year in the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office that ended in 1995. From 1995 to 1996, I did an additional year of training in forensic pathology at the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office, and this year of training outside of the residency was referred to as a fellowship year. But because I already had a year of experience in that office doing those same duties, I was essentially treated like a junior attending, and I got to supervise other individuals in training at that point in time. At the conclusion of my fellowship year in 1996, I stayed on staff at the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office as an associate medical examiner, and I held that position until 2004. And I guess to back up a little bit, as a medical examiner in Fulton County, it was our job to investigate deaths that were sudden, unexpected, unexplained, or due to non-natural causes. And as the medical examiner investigating those deaths, it was our job to determine a cause and manner of death. Cause of death is what it sounds like, what caused this person to die at this point in time. Manner of death is a way in which we categorize deaths for purposes of reporting on the death certificate. And in Georgia, as a medical examiner, we're limited to 5 manners of death: natural, accident, suicide, homicide, and undetermined. Okay, so 2004, I left Fulton County and went to work for Dr. Gerald T. Gowitt, G-O-W-I-T-T, who's the chief medical examiner in DeKalb County. And not only did we handle medical examiner cases for DeKalb County, but we also handled cases for Hall, Henry, Rockdale, and White counties. Toward the end of 2005, I had the opportunity to form my own company and put in a bid for the medical examiner contract here in Gwinnett County. So the medical examiner position here in Gwinnett County is not a county department, it is a contracted position. I was awarded that contract in February of 2006, and I have maintained that position since then. I am licensed to practice medicine in the state of Georgia and have been since 1992. I'm triple board certified by the American Board of Pathology in all 3 areas of pathology in which I have trained and studied: anatomic, clinical, and forensic pathology. I have personally done between 6,200 and 6,300 autopsies. I have supervised individuals in training in over 700 additional autopsies. And I have testified in the Superior Courts of Georgia and been declared an expert witness over 395 times.
Your Honor, at this time I tender Dr. Terry as an expert in the field of forensic pathology.
No objection, Judge.
All right, she will be so tendered.
Dr. Terry, did you conduct an autopsy in the medical examiner's case number 21G1279?
Yes, I did.
Well, first of all, where does that number come from?
Okay. 21, it was a death that occurred in the year 2021. G stands for Gwinnett. And then the 1279, this was the 1,279th death that was reported to our office in that year.
And is a number assigned to every case that comes into the medical examiner's office?
Yes, a number is assigned to every death that is reported to our office. Not every reported death comes into our office, but every death that is reported to our office gets assigned a case number.
And does that case number follow every activity, photograph, sample, procedure that is taken in that particular death?
In our office, yes.
What did you do in relationship to case number 21G1279?
Okay, typically, with any death that's reported to our office in which we have accepted jurisdiction and my investigator has decided that the body needs to come in for an examination, there is a discussion that occurs between me and my investigator so that I am briefed on what they know about the case and if they've gone to the scene, what was observed at the scene. And then when I go to do the examination in the morgue, typically the investigator who handled the case or went to the scene assists with the examination so that there can be a free exchange of information as we're doing the examination. So in the case of a gunshot wound, I'll have x-rays taken prior to my examining the body, prior to the disaster bag containing the body even being opened, because that's something that my technicians can do without the body being exposed and the disaster bag being opened, so that's something that can be done prior to my arrival into the morgue, and so I can know whether or not I have any evidence in the body that I need to recover. Also, in reviewing the circumstances, I'll determine what sort of trace evidence, if any, I need to direct my attention to collecting prior to any undressing or cleaning of the body. So that's very important that I know about the circumstances under which a death has occurred or the body has been found. Then I'll do an external examination of the body. And in doing this external or outside examination of the body, I'm describing any articles of clothing that are on the body, any personal effects, any kind of medical intervention that occurred, and then much like any family physician would examine any one of you, I'll take a measured height or body length, a recorded weight from the scale in the morgue. I'll say whether or not the person appears consistent with the age that they're purported to be. And now, in the case in question, the individual came into our office as an unidentified person. So, of course, there's going to be attention directed to identifying marks, scars, tattoos, because we want to get this person identified. Again, depending upon the circumstances, there may be some collection of trace type evidence. In this case in question, because of the circumstances, I collected various swabs and smears from body surfaces and orifices because I had a young female dead in a park. And so one of the things I've got to be concerned about, was there any kind of sexual contact that occurred? So these are things, if you don't think about them in the beginning, you're going to lose it because you're going to start altering the body by undressing and cleaning the body. So these are my first steps, and then after the external examination, attention was then directed to doing an internal examination. So opening the body and examining the organs as they're positioned in the body. At that point in time, we will collect specimens for routine drug testing, at least, depending upon the nature of the case, we may do more expanded drug testing. But we'll at least collect that. We will collect specimens for potential DNA analysis, and then I'll have the organs removed from the body, and in doing a full autopsy, we'll look at the organs of the chest, abdomen, pelvis, as well as the brain. I'll examine the organs, weigh them, dissect them, and take a small piece of each major tissue and place in a container of formaldehyde solution in case I have to look at it under the microscope. In some cases, I don't need to process the tissue to look at under the microscope, but that's something that is taken in the course of doing a full autopsy. And these are the steps that were taken in the course of this examination. And also in the course of this examination, I recovered some evidence from the body, specifically bullet fragments from the head.
I'm going to show you what's marked as State's Exhibits
59 through 60.
Okay, are we skipping 58 on purpose? Do not have a 58.
I'm sorry, there's actually 58 through 60. I'm not skipping it, I'm just not reading it.
Okay.
Okay. Yes.
Are State's Exhibits 58 through 60 true and accurate depictions of that which they're photographs of?
Yes, they are.
Has anything been added to, taken away from them?
No.
Your Honor, the state would tender State's Exhibits 58 through 60.
No objection, Judge.
All right, 58 through 60 are admitted without objection.
And we'll start with a description of, since you mentioned them, States 58 and 59.
Okay.
May I publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Publishing State's Exhibit 58. Describe State's Exhibit 58 for the jury, please.
Okay, State's Exhibit 58 is the jacket fragment of a bullet that I recovered from the head of the deceased. And so this jacket is the outer covering of the bullet, and it's what I would call yellow metal. So it's kind of a golden look to it, and it was on the outer part of the bullet, and it's been broken off, and on the outside of it, you have what's referred to as rifling marks. So when the bullet came out of the gun, it imparted these striations on the outside of the jacket. And so that's what we're looking at in this photograph. And in addition, this photograph depicts a scale for reference, so you can see roughly what size this jacket fragment is. And there's an adhesive label that has the case number, the deceased name, the date I began the autopsy, because I did the external examination on one day to try to get identifying information out to the law enforcement, and then did the internal examination on the next day. And then it's got my signature on there, as well as a description. It's a yellow metal jacket from the left side of the head, and so I recovered it from inside the head.
And State's Exhibit 59.
Okay. State's Exhibit 59 is the lead core part of the bullet. So this is the center part of the bullet. The core in the jacket had separated, and in this photograph, you see the lead core. I've marked the base of the lead core with a capital T that you can see in this photograph, T for Terry. And you also have the identification tag associated with it, case number, date of commencement of the autopsy, the deceased name, and my signature, as well as the site of where I recovered this lead core. And it's not depicted, but there was also an additional small fragment of yellow metal jacket that I recovered from inside the head, but these are the two main fragments of the bullet that were recovered from the left side of the head in doing the internal examination.
Now, these physical samples you collected, but you also mentioned other samples that would include swabs, blood. What is done with the biological samples that you collect from that you collected from this line?
Okay. If we're talking about the swabs and smears, those specimens were collected and packaged and turned.
What rulings were you able to make in your expert opinion?
In my expert opinion, the cause of death was that Miss Lang died as a result of a gunshot wound of the head. And want me to proceed on about manner of death? Yes. And for manner of death, it was my ruling that the manner be undetermined.
And and when you say undetermined, that is from one of the five categories that you list. It's natural, accident, suicide, homicide, and undetermined.
That is correct.
Did you make additional findings about how Miss Lang died based on observations made at the scene, photographs, or other information?
Yes, I have additional information about circumstances surrounding her death based on examination of the body in conjunction with speaking with my investigator and reviewing photographs from the scene.
We can look at some of the photographs from the scene. But first, I want to go ahead and get this over with. What was the wound path taken by the bullet that killed Tori Lang?
Okay, well, the entrance wound was on the right side of her head, kind of above and in front of the ear, roughly in the temporal area. And the wound path went from her right side towards her left. There was no significant upward or downward or frontward or backward deviation. It basically went straight across. And in doing so, it produced a devastating injury of the base of the brain, disrupting the main blood vessels at the base of the brain, as well as transecting an area of the brain stem known as the pons.
And what does a bullet transecting that particular section of the brainstem do to the human body?
Well, basically, it severs the connection between the cortex of the brain and the rest of the body, so you would not be capable of any voluntary movement, and would result in a pretty sudden death. Because again, your brainstem is responsible for vital functions of the body, and it has now been completely severed.
Would vital functions include heartbeat, breathing, motor control?
Yes.
Yes to all of those things?
Yes.
And you said death would be fairly. I want to use your words.
Sure. And the reason, because again, it's the pons. Could there have been a couple of heartbeats after? Yeah, possibly. So, but death would be fairly instant, not necessarily instantaneous. Might have gotten a couple heartbeats, but I can tell you there was no breathing in of any blood. So, I think death was probably within a matter of seconds.
But after this region of the brainstem is injured in that fashion, essentially there would be no voluntary movement by Tori after receiving that injury.
That is correct. No voluntary movement.
Does State's Exhibit 60 demonstrate this wound path or allow you to show the jury the wound path?
Yes, it does.
Your Honor, before I publish State's Exhibit 60, I will warn that it is on the more gruesome side of things. So if there's anybody in the
Other than jurors, obviously, who cannot.
They were accepted, Your Honor.
Okay.
This is United States Exhibit 60. Can you describe for the jury what's shown here?
Okay, first of all, let me give you orientation. At this point in the autopsy, the brain has been removed from the skull. As the body is positioned here, the face would be pointed upward, the back of the head pointed downward. May I stand?
Yes.
Make sure you keep your voice up so that you can be heard by the jury in the court.
Okay. This is where the spinal cord is. This is an area at the base of the skull called the foramen magnum. This is not an injury. So it's important to recognize that as an anatomic landmark. Here is the entrance wound into the skull. And again, this is the right side of her head. And the bullet has come across. We see radiating fractures or breaks in the skull that emanate from this hole. And then the bullet fragments and breaks the bone over here on the opposite side of the skull. And as I mentioned earlier, the core and the jacket separated. I recovered them kind of beneath the scalp in this area, but this is where the skull is broken. But so the bullet has crossed from the right side of the head to the left, essentially passing straight across. And these bones here, there, and there, called the Petrius Ridge. This is where it communicates with where your ears are, and we've got fractures across both of these bones here. So when you see photographs from the scene and you see blood coming out of the ears, that's why we've got a fracture of the base of the skull, basilar skull fractures, where blood is going to be leaking through those areas.
Now, did this particular, your examination of the inside of Tori's skull, did that confirm, or was that consistent with findings that you, external, did that confirm your analysis based on what you saw externally?
Yes, that she was shot in the head.
Were you able to determine the distance from which she was shot?
Yes. I was able to give a range of fire.
How so?
Well, one of the things that I do as a forensic pathologist is my expertise is in pattern recognition. And while I'm not a ballistics expert, my expertise is in terminal ballistics, what bullets do to bodies and the evidence that they deposit on the bodies. And so in looking at this entrance gunshot wound on Miss Lang's head, there was gunpowder injury around this wound. When a firearm is discharged, other things come out of the end of the gun other than just the bullet. You can have gases, you can have flame, you can have smoke or soot, and you can have particles of burned and unburned gunpowder coming out. And based on the mass associated with these different elements, it affects how far this material travels. So a contact wound of the head is going to look different from a distant gunshot wound to the head, because you don't have these materials getting deposited on the skin. And there are gradations in this range based upon the access of these different materials to being deposited around the wound. And looking at Miss Lang, the configuration of the wound was round. With a contact wound, because you get gases that build up between the scalp and the skull, you get tearing of the wound typically. We don't have this. This was not a contact wound. Also, you can get a muzzle injury. You can get burning or searing of the wound edges. You can get soot. None of that was present. This is not a contact range wound. If you move a little further away, you can get soot around the wound because you got the smoke or the soot getting deposited on the skin, and you can get gunpowder striking the skin and producing injuries. Well, we have the gunpowder injury, but we don't have the soot. So this is falling in a range of fire that I refer to as a medium range wound. And medium range can also be referred to as intermediate. I tend to use medium because intermediate sounds too much like indeterminate. So by medium range, I mean I've got gunpowder injury without soot, and so it implies certain things about range of fire. And in measuring the diameter of the stippling or the gunpowder injury around this wound, from that, you can estimate a range of fire. The only way to know absolutely what the range of fire is to test fire the weapon and see about replicating that pattern of stippling or gunpowder injury. So in measuring the diameter of the stippling, the estimated range of fire is 10 to 12 inches from the muzzle of the gun to Ms. Lang's head.
I'm going to show you what's marked as, or admitted as State's Exhibit 47. Can you describe what we're seeing in State's Exhibit 47?
Okay, State's Exhibit 47, we're looking at a photograph of the scene of Ms. Lang. And in this photograph, there are a couple of things that are important here in how she's positioned at the scene. Something to note is the pattern of the blood as it's coming out of her nose and as it's coming out of the wound and out of her ears. It's going straight down in accordance with gravity. She's in that position at the time she sustained this wound, because as soon as she got this wound, it's going to start bleeding. And so she wasn't upright and fell down. She's lying in this position. Also, looking at her braids, I measured the braids at 36 inches long. Her braids are splayed out behind her head. Again, she didn't fall down on top of them. They've been essentially fanned out. Her head's in that position at the time she received this wound. And that's what's important in this photograph. And in this photograph, we do have the blood that's coming from the ears, from the wound, from the nose, but there's stippling there as well. That's that gunpowder injury, but that's harder to appreciate given the bleeding and brain matter that you have associated with this wound in this picture.